Let me tell you something that might come as a surprise. Women never really forget certain men. It's not necessarily about how much money they had, how good-looking they were, or how flamboyant they acted. Nope. We remember the men who made us feel something uniquely different. And here's a truth that a lot of guys don't quite grasp. It's not always the guy with the biggest muscles, the sharpest suits, or the smoothest pickup lines who sticks in our minds. It's the man who does very specific, often subtle things that trigger something much deeper inside of us. See, women are constantly getting attention from men. Compliments, messages, dates, guys trying their hardest to impress us. It's a never-ending stream. But most of it, we forget. It all kind of blends together because it starts to feel the same. The thing that actually makes a man unforgettable isn't what most guys think. It's not grand, over-the-top romantic gestures, and it's definitely not about being perfect. It's those little shifts in behavior. The moments where you stand out from the crowd because you showed a side of yourself that most men don't. That's exactly why I want to be upfront with you in this video. I'm not here to give you fluffy advice or the same old tired dating cliches. I'm here to tell you the real deal, the things women talk about amongst ourselves, the things we'll admit behind closed doors, and the things we simply can't forget when a man does them. Now, some of what I'm about to say might feel a bit uncomfortable, maybe even a little controversial because it goes against what you've probably been told, but that's the whole point. If you truly want to stand out in a woman's mind, whether she's someone you're currently dating, someone you're hoping to date, or even someone who once overlooked you, you need to understand these 5 things. Because once you do, you'll realize that it doesn't take perfection to become unforgettable. It just takes understanding how women really operate. And that's precisely what I'm about to reveal to you. 1. She never forgets the man who makes her feel safe. Let me be completely real with you on this point. A woman will always remember how a man made her feel. You can shower her with gifts, take her to fancy, expensive dinners, and say all the right things, but if she doesn't genuinely feel safe with you, none of that will stick. And when I say safe, I don't just mean protecting her from physical danger, although, of course, that's important too. I'm talking about the kind of safety that goes much, much deeper: emotional safety, mental safety, and even spiritual safety. That's the kind of feeling a woman carries with her long after you're gone. Think about it this way. A woman is naturally wired to be careful with her heart. She's not going to fully open up unless she knows, without a doubt, that you're not going to use her vulnerability against her. When she's with a man who doesn't judge her, who listens without twisting her feelings into a perceived weakness, she feels something truly rare: relief. And trust me when I say this, women never forget that because the truth is, most men don't provide it. Many men either dismiss what she says, make her feel like she's being overly dramatic, or, even worse, use her confessions as a weapon against her later on down the road. But the man who can hold space for her without making her feel foolish or silly, that man lives on in her memory forever. Imagine a moment where she's feeling completely stressed out. Maybe life is just crashing down all around her, or she's seriously doubting herself. Most people would tell her to just calm down or stop overthinking things. But the man she'll never forget doesn't do that. He looks at her, steady and grounded, and says something like, "I've got you. You don't need to figure this out all on your own. I'm here." Just like that, her walls come tumbling down. That's the kind of energy she will replay in her mind months, even years later. And here's what you need to understand. This isn't about pretending to be her therapist. And it's definitely not about trying to fix every single problem she has. It's about showing her that she can let her guard down around you without being punished for it. A woman might forget the exact words you said, but she will never, ever forget the way her chest felt lighter when she was around you. That's what makes this so incredibly powerful. Because no matter what happens later on, even if she moves on, even if the relationship eventually ends, she will carry that memory of safety with her. And once a woman has truly felt it, she can't unfeel it. She'll automatically compare every other man she meets to the one who gave her that sense of calm and security. So, here's the honest truth. Women never forget the man who made them feel safe. Not because of his money, not because of his looks, but because that's the man who touched something far deeper than the surface. That's the man who truly stands out in her heart long after everything else has faded away. 2. She never forgets the man who truly listens. Here's something that most men seriously underestimate: the sheer power of listening. And I'm not talking about that passive type of listening where you're just nodding along while waiting for your turn to speak. I mean real, active listening, where she feels truly seen, genuinely heard, and completely understood without interruption or judgment. A woman never forgets the man who listens to her in a way that makes her feel like her voice actually matters. Why is that? Because it's actually pretty rare. Most people listen to respond, not to actually understand. And women are very aware of this fact. She can absolutely tell when you're just pretending to pay attention, when your eyes glaze over, or when you jump straight into giving her solutions without really absorbing what she's actually said. But the man who slows down, locks in, and gives her his undivided presence, that man leaves an impression that really sticks. Let me break this down for you. When a woman is talking, she's not always necessarily looking for answers. Sometimes, she just wants to release what's been bottled up inside. And the men who mess this up are the ones who either dismiss her feelings altogether or try to instantly fix everything for her. That absolutely kills attraction. What keeps her connected and engaged is when you don't rush her, when you allow her to speak fully, and when you reflect back that you truly understand what she's saying. Simple phrases like, "I hear you," or "that sounds really tough," go much further than most men realize because it clearly shows that you're really tuned into her, not just brushing her off to the side. And here's the secret. When a woman feels truly listened to, she naturally feels closer to you. She opens up even more. She trusts you more deeply. And that bond that you create isn't something she can replicate easily with just anyone. That's precisely why the memory of it lingers. Even years down the road, she'll think about you and remember, he was the only one who actually listened to me without making me feel crazy or overly dramatic. Think about just how rare that really is in her world. Friends might only half listen, coworkers constantly cut her off, family members might dismiss her outright, and most men only listen just long enough to get what they want. But the man who genuinely gives her his presence stands out like a shining light in the darkness. That's the man she replays in her head when she's talking to someone new who just doesn't measure up. So, here's the truth. Listening isn't about being passive. It's an active skill that requires effort. It's about leaning in, catching all the little details, remembering the things she tells you, and making her feel like her inner world truly matters. And when you do that, you become unforgettable. Not because you said all the perfect words, but because you gave her the incredibly rare gift of being fully heard. That's why women never forget the man who truly listens. Because in a world that's constantly full of noise, he's the one who gave her silence, space, and genuine understanding. And that is incredibly powerful. 3. She never forgets the man who protects her peace. Every woman values peace deeply. And the truth is, most men really don't realize just how much it truly matters. A woman never forgets the man who made her life calmer, safer, and lighter, instead of more stressful, chaotic, or heavy. Protection isn't only about shielding her from physical harm, although that's certainly a component. It's also about protecting her mental and emotional peace. And when you're the man who brings that kind of stability, you become impossible for her to completely erase from her memory. Think about it for a second. Many women go through life constantly dealing with drama. Whether it's ongoing family issues, competitive friends, constant work stress, or even past toxic relationships, if you come into her world and only add to that existing chaos, she'll eventually end up resenting you. But if you're the man who brings calm into her storm, that impact stays with her forever. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be perfect or completely emotionless. It simply means that you know how to handle challenges without losing control, without projecting your anger onto her, and without ultimately making her life harder. For example, if she's venting to you about something that's bothering her, you don't escalate the situation by being dismissive or overly reactive. Instead, you simply hold your composure. Let her feel truly safe around you, and make her believe, without a doubt, that with you, she doesn't have to constantly be on guard. What women will often never admit out loud is that they deeply crave a man who can provide them with that sense of peace, simply because it's so incredibly rare. Many men mistakenly think that they impress women with money, good looks, or big, grand gestures. But what truly makes a man unforgettable is the overall emotional environment that he creates. Was she genuinely relaxed around you? Did she feel like she could truly be herself without constantly fearing judgment? Did your presence lower her anxiety levels instead of raising them? If the answer to those questions is yes, she'll definitely remember you forever. Here's where most men tend to mess up. They mistakenly confuse protecting her peace with being a yes man or avoiding conflict at all costs. That's definitely not it. Protecting her peace also means setting healthy boundaries, standing firm when needed, and not allowing her to drag you into unnecessary drama. Women actually respect men who can maintain control over themselves and refuse to live in constant chaos. That self-discipline gives her a sense of security, and security is, without a doubt, unforgettable. Years later, even if she's with someone else, she'll inevitably compare him to you. If her new partner constantly brings stress, arguments, or drama into her life, she'll find herself thinking, it was never like this with him. With him, I always felt calm. I felt safe and secure. And trust me when I tell you that comparison is extremely powerful. So, here's the lesson. You don't have to fight the entire world to be her protector. You just need to bring stability, calm, and clarity into her life. Be the man who protects her peace, and you'll live on in her mind long after everything else has faded away. 4. She never forgets the man who challenges her. Here's a truth that most men don't really realize. Women might enjoy being admired, spoiled, and pursued, but they don't easily forget the man who genuinely challenges them. A man who isn't afraid to call her out on her BS, push her to grow, or refuse to tolerate her games stands out in a way that truly burns into her memory. Why does this happen? Because he's actually quite rare. Most guys tend to do the complete opposite. They bend over backward to please her, agree with absolutely everything she says, and avoid any and all conflict at all costs. At first, she might enjoy all of that attention, but deep down, she doesn't really respect it. When a man never challenges her, she sees him as being predictable, easy to manipulate, and eventually, easily forgettable. But when a man is different, when he's strong enough to challenge her behavior, her overall mindset, or even her comfort zone, he triggers something much deeper within her. It's not about being confrontational for no real reason. It's about refusing to be a total pushover. For example, if she's being overly dramatic or constantly testing boundaries, the man who calmly but firmly says, "I'm not going to entertain this nonsense," instantly separates himself from every other guy who would have just submitted in order to keep her happy. This kind of man leaves a lasting impression because he actually forces her to elevate her game. He makes her question herself, makes her respect him even more, and makes her realize that he's definitely not like all the rest. Even if she argues with him in the moment, deep down she actually admires him because he's strong enough to stand on his own principles instead of simply living for her validation and approval. Here's what makes this so unforgettable. Women don't forget the men who truly shaped them. If you're the reason that she became more disciplined, more self-aware, or more accountable for her own actions, she'll always remember you as the man who didn't just let her coast through life. You were the man who actually raised her standards, even for herself. Even years later, when she meets men who are agreeable and easygoing, she'll likely think, they're just way too easy. They don't challenge me the way that he did. That comparison really sticks in her mind. The man who challenges her creates a certain amount of emotional tension, and that tension fuels both attraction and lasting memory. So, don't ever be afraid to draw a line in the sand. Don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to make her earn your respect instead of just handing it over freely, because the man who challenges her is ultimately the man that she'll never truly forget. 5. She never forgets the man who made her feel desired. Here's something you really need to understand about women. They're constantly being looked at, noticed, and even complimented on a regular basis. But there's a massive difference between a man who simply acknowledges her beauty and the man who makes her feel deeply desired. That second one? She'll never forget. Most men make the mistake of either overdoing it or completely underdoing it. Some bombard her with shallow compliments like, "You're so hot," or "You're absolutely gorgeous," to the point where it completely loses all meaning. Others, in fear of appearing too needy, hold back completely, giving her absolutely nothing to feed off of. But the man who strikes the perfect balance, the one who can truly look her in the eyes, hold her attention, and make her feel like she's the only woman in the entire world,
that man really sticks in her mind.
Making a woman feel desired isn't just about words alone. It's about your overall presence. It's the way you look at her, like you're not just seeing her body, but also her very essence. It's the way you touch her when the moment feels right. Not desperately, but confidently, with complete control. It's the way you carry yourself around her that communicates, "I don't necessarily need you, but I definitely want you, and I want you badly." That kind of energy is absolutely magnetic. Here's the honest truth. Women often forget flattery, but they never forget really feeling truly wanted. A woman will always remember the man who looked at her in a way that actually made her knees weak. She'll remember the man who didn't just give her attention out of habit, but out of genuine, raw, masculine desire. She'll remember the way he made her feel feminine, beautiful, and completely craved. Even if she moves on, even if she eventually dates someone else, that memory will linger in her mind. Because deep down, women genuinely want to feel chosen, desired, and utterly feminine in the presence of a strong, confident man. If you gave her that experience, if you ignited that fire within her, she simply won't be able to erase you from her mind. And here's the real kicker. True desire is actually quite rare. Most men are either way too thirsty or far too distant. The man who can balance restraint with raw, passionate desire? That's unforgettable. That's the man she'll compare every future connection to.
6.
She never forgets the man who walked away with dignity. There's one particular type of man that women will continue to talk about for years after he's long gone. The man who simply walked away when he wasn't being valued and did it with complete dignity. Not anger, not drama, not begging, just quiet confidence. That leaves a permanent mark on a woman's mind. See, most men tend to do the complete opposite. When a woman pulls away, loses interest, or starts to disrespect them, they panic, they chase after her, they argue with her, and they try desperately to prove their worth. And all that really does is confirm what she already felt, that she was above him. But the man who calmly accepts the reality of the situation and withdraws without lowering his own standards, that man triggers something incredibly powerful in her psychology. Why is that? Because he showed her that he wasn't actually afraid of losing her. He proved, without even saying a single word, that his own value doesn't come from her approval or validation. And that stings her. It forces her to confront a truth that she simply can't escape. If he can simply walk away, it's because he knows, without a doubt, that he can be wanted elsewhere. That's when she truly realizes that she lost a man who simply won't tolerate being taken for granted. Here's what makes it so unforgettable. Most women are completely used to men folding under pressure. They're used to emotional outbursts, desperate text messages, or last-ditch attempts to somehow hold on. But when you display the complete opposite, calm detachment, self-control, and unwavering dignity, you instantly separate yourself from the rest of the crowd. You become the man who handled rejection or disrespect in a way that actually raised your value instead of lowering it. And trust me, she'll replay that scenario in her head long after the breakup, long after she thought she'd moved on with her life. She'll remember that you didn't fight for crumbs. You ultimately chose yourself. And that's something that a woman cannot easily forget because it reminds her of the kind of strength that most men simply don't possess. That's the man she compares others to. That's the man who truly stands out in her mind. That's the man that she'll never really forget. 7. She never forgets the man who made her feel safe. If there's one thing that cuts deeper than mere looks, money, or even charm, it's a feeling of genuine safety. A woman never forgets the man who made her feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Because deep down, every woman truly craves a feeling of security. And when she experiences that sense of security with a man, it etches itself into her memory like a permanent mark. Here's the honest truth. Most men mistakenly think that safety simply means being physically strong or overtly protective. Sure, that matters, but it's only a small part of the overall equation. Safety is also about being reliable, consistent, and completely trustworthy. It's about being the man that she knows won't crumble when life inevitably gets hard. The man who actually keeps his word, the man who doesn't let his own emotions control him, especially in the midst of chaos. That type of safety is exceedingly rare and completely unforgettable. Think about it for a moment. A woman might date men who are exciting, fun, or even wildly attractive. But if those same men also made her feel insecure, unstable, or unsure of where she stood with them, they will eventually fade from her memory. They'll simply blend into the crowd of fun, but ultimately forgettable, experiences. But the man who gave her a genuine peace of mind, who created an environment where she could truly be feminine, vulnerable, and completely relaxed, that's the man who stays top of mind for her. It's not necessarily about being soft or overly protective. It's all about balance. It's about displaying strength, but without unnecessary aggression. It's about remaining calm in moments where others are clearly losing control. It's about showing up consistently instead of being unpredictable and unreliable. That's what builds real trust deep down in her nervous system. And once she truly feels that trust, she can't simply unfeel it. Even if she leaves, even if she tries her best to move on with her life, every man she meets afterward will inevitably be measured against that same high standard. If they simply can't give her that same sense of peace and stability, she'll keep remembering the one who did. And that's the ultimate irony. Women might chase after excitement in the moment, but in the long run, what truly stays etched in their memory isn't chaos, it's a deep sense of safety. The man who gave her that gift will always hold a special place in her mind, whether she openly admits it or not. Women simply don't forget the man who leaves a lasting emotional fingerprint on their soul. And it's definitely not about flashy gifts, smooth pickup lines, or temporary thrills. It's all about the way that you made her truly feel. If you gave her a sense of mystery, made her genuinely laugh, challenged her to grow, respected her boundaries, left her with some unfinished emotions, embodied unwavering confidence, showed her your depth as a person, and, most importantly of all, made her feel truly safe, then you have already left a mark on her that no other man can ever completely erase. You see, attraction inevitably fades, looks eventually change, and excitement ultimately burns out, but the deep emotions that you awakened within her will stay locked inside her memory. That's exactly why, even years later, women still think about certain men when they just can't fall asleep at night. That's also why they sometimes find themselves comparing new men to the ones from their past. And that's precisely why the man who truly understood female psychology and didn't overexpose himself ends up becoming completely unforgettable. Here's the fundamental truth that you really need to remember. Being unforgettable isn't about chasing after a woman or trying to constantly prove yourself to her. It's about being grounded, disciplined, and completely secure in yourself as an individual. Because when a man truly knows his own value, he naturally leaves a lasting impact without even trying too hard. That's the man that a woman truly remembers, not because he begged for her attention, but because he carried himself in a way that she simply couldn't ignore. So don't aim to simply impress her. Aim instead to embody all of the traits that women never forget. Do this consistently, and whether she ultimately stays or goes, your presence will always linger in her mind.